Today we are going to be talking about subtracting fractions with like denominators. Today we worked in class on adding fractions with like denominators, and if you remember, we talked about that a whole can be divided into equal portions, and however many equal portions we divide that whole into, that becomes our denominator. Then however many pieces of that whole we're talking about, that is our numerator. So tonight we're going to be talking about modeling subtraction of fractions. So you can see that I have a 1 whole here, and I have 12 twelfths underneath it. 12 twelfths equals 1 whole. So we're going to pretend that this is a garden plot. So we're going to say that our garden plot is divided into 12 equal sections. If 2 of those sections are used to grow hot peppers, what fraction is left to grow other crops? So you can see that I have taken 2 twelfths away. Our question is, if you remember, what fraction is left to grow other crops? So if you count how many we have, you will see that we have 10 twelfths. So looking at this picture, you can see we have our 10 twelfths left out of our 1 whole. Remember that we did 12 twelfths minus 2 twelfths, and that equals 10 twelfths. The way that looks then in mathematics with numbers, we would have 12 twelfths. Remember, we had a whole. 12 twelfths equals that whole. We subtracted 2 twelfths, which left us with 10 twelfths. Now, our 10 twelfths, you can see that both the numerator, 10, and the denominator, 12, are both even numbers because they end in 0 and 2. Since they are both even, they are not written in their simplest form. If you remember how to write equivalent fractions, we want to make simplest form by dividing. So we need to find that greatest common factor of 10 and 12. To find the greatest common factor, we list out the factors of each number. And for 10, that's 1, 2, 5, and 10. For 12, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. So our greatest common factor is 2. So we're going to divide 10 twelfths by 2 halves, 2, 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. Now we have that written in simplest form. When we are looking at our fractions and our answers, we always want to make sure we have our fractions in simplest form. And the way you do that is to find the greatest common factor. So we're going to look at that on the next slide. Okay, on this slide we're going to just review how we find our simplest form, which we have talked about as our equivalent fractions. So if we had the fraction 14/21, we would list out the factors of 14, which are 1, 2, 7, and 14. And of 21, it's 1, 3, 7, and 21. So our greatest common factor in both lines is 7. So we know that we can divide the 14 by 7 and the 21 by 7 to get our simplest form. So 14 divided by 7 is 2, and our 21 divided by 7 is 3. So 14/21 is equivalent to 2/3, and 2/3 is the simplest form of that fraction. Okay, we're going to model another problem. Again, we have our 1 whole, and we are going to use fifths this time. So this time we're going to say that we have divided our garden plot into 5/5 because 5/5 is what equals 1 whole. You can see that we took away 3/5 of our 5/5, so we have 2/5 left of our 1 whole. So then our problem is going to look like this. We're going to start with 5/5, and remember we took away 3/5, so that left us with 2/5. Because 2/5 cannot be simplified because 2 does not go into 5, and 5 is a prime number. That means we have it in its simplest form, 2/5. So again, we looked for our simplest form. We ask ourselves, can the numerator, is the numerator, a factor of our denominator? And it is not. There is not another common factor between the two of them, so 2/5 is in its simplest form.